Alright, I wasn't sure if I was going to do anything tonight as far as a new metal review goes, but I decided, what the hell, why not? Actually I've been kind of ignoring a somewhat local, smaller label, Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Records. Got a promo from them recently, because I felt like I've been ignoring them on the site a little bit, and I kinda have my reasons. I got a promo for Impalers. I gotta say, I was actually impressed. And again, I have my reasons. I've said it before on the site. I'll say it here too. As far as Horror, Pain, Gore, Death Records goes, I respect the label greatly. I just don't like a lot of the bands they sign. And the reason being, a lot of them come from Philadelphia. And no offense to Philadelphia, they do have some kick-ass bands, but there's just some that wind up on that label I cannot get into. I just question why the label picked them up in the first place, outside of the fact that they're from Philly. So I figured, you know what, I will give Impalers a shot. Little did I know they're actually from Denmark. I thought they were a Philly band at first, which actually surprised me. They don't always go out of their Philadelphia and surrounding areas wheelhouse, at least that I know of. It's very rare for them to do that. Impalers, the new album is coming out March 9th of this year. It's called Power Behind the Throne. They're a four-piece thrash band. Like I said, they're from Denmark. More of an early thrash group. They formed back in 2007, and they issued 2 demos. Weren't really widely received, but Horror, Pain, Gore, Death, I guess, got them and were impressed. So they signed them for the full-length album that's due out this year. And I'll just hammer out the similarities right now. I mean, bands like Slayer, Sodom, there's a little Vector in there that I could pick up on, and even Toxic Holocaust as far as the modern thrash revival goes. But in many ways, this band really can blow Toxic Holocaust right out of the water. The production on the album, actually very modern, has a really digital quality to it. It's pretty good, honestly. I liked it, but at the same time, it does cause some problems. The guitars have they're pretty harsh. They have a slight sharpness to them. The bass is kind of dull. It's a little lost in the mix, but it still stands out enough that it makes a little bit of an impression on the music. And it's good in some of the more open areas. If it were deeper, it would really help out when the music does become slower and simpler. The vocals, they're a raspy performance, very harsh, like early Sodom. Very enthusiastic as well. The cymbals, they're crisp, but they're pushed further in the background compared to the tighter snares, and the really solid click of the bass kick. I mean, that really helps out too, but again, the music does become simpler, and even that is used sparingly, which, bit of a letdown. But the album kicks off with the song Fear. Now, it actually kind of starts off like Slayer's Raining Blood in a couple ways. It has storm effects going on, but instead of the haunting guitar chords with that echo effect, they're just clean guitar chords. They're played slow, and it does suit the atmosphere, the environment that the storm effects are giving, and it does sound pretty good. Eventually, it's like a minute before the actual music starts, some harsher riffs kick in, and then you gotta go through an extended intro, but it all sounds good, and it does work to create a harsh, not a harsher tone, more of a, I don't even know how to put it. My cat is going off in the background, and it is distracting me horribly. I apologize. Desolate, I guess would be the word I'm looking for. A bit of a desolate, hopeless atmosphere to the harsher music that comes up. Fear is one of the very few faster, aggressive tracks, and it actually works for it. There's some slight technicality to the music, especially in the chords, and it actually helps make the music a lot richer. There's not really that much complexity to the chords. That does show up a little later. Honestly, this song just felt a lot like a similarity to Toxic Holocaust more than anything else, a slight Slayer influence to the music. But it definitely, like I said, blows Toxic Holocaust right out of the water with this track. Very aggressive. The distant gang chants really help this one out. Again, this is the only song that uses it, and they are used sparingly. But really helps the intensity of the track more than anything. The only gripe I really have about this, and some of the others coming up, where are the falsettos? There's so much intensity, so much aggression behind the music. I'm just waiting for the raspiness to just go into that kind of falsetto. Oh, one thing this album really needs. And it doesn't hit. And honestly, every song that goes by where they're not used, it rendered my heart horribly. It just left a hole. It made me want them so bad. But honestly, that song is just one hell of a start for the album. And it honestly made me really look forward to what's coming up. See What I See was another fantastic track. Unfortunately, this is also where things kind of start slowing down a bit. This is a faster, tighter performance overall. And there's a good deal of... And there goes my cat, thank God. There's a good deal of melody to some of the main riffs, especially in the chorus. Kind of like a slight Creator, modern Creator sound, like Enemy of God, I guess you would reference. More so than the last two albums. Some complexity in the chords, but the drumming is a little simpler overall. Not very aggressive, but it is a highly infectious track. I loved it. I caught myself headbanging to it. I had to go back and listen to it a couple of times as soon as it was done, just because that's how good it was. I really liked it. The solo itself, very heavy metal-esque. Not quite new wave of British heavy metal-esque, but definitely got a heavy metal tone to it. I gotta say, it's one of the best solos I have heard in a long time for a thrash album. It's just really good. Definitely one of my favorites, especially in the past few years. Very emotional. It suits the aggressive tone quite nice. And there's an ominous breakdown-esque passage, I guess you would say. Things just slow down. It's not really like a slam or an actual breakdown. It sounds pretty good. It is a bit out of nowhere, but given some of the catchier tones, it's not faded, but transitioned into well enough, it still works. I can see this being the final song of the band's set, because this is an instant crowd pleaser. There's no doubt in my mind this will get fans riled up and moshing the instant it starts. But like I said, this also marks where the album doesn't quite start going downhill, but it becomes a lot simpler. A lot of the aggression, they try to go for it, but it just can't be met because of the production. When the simpler material hits, thanks to the bass and how restricted the bass kicks end up being, it just starts getting thinned. Not every song becomes as catchy or even that engaging. The title song, Power Behind the Throne, definitely slower. It's got a faster solo and heavily relies on the timing of the shifts, especially in the verses. It'll start out kind of slow with some two-step and then all of a sudden just go that pace for a few, maybe a moment or two, and then go back to the slower pace for another line of lyrics, and then that faster pace kicks in again. Tries to be aggressive, but again, due to the simpler pace, it just doesn't really work out too much. There is some crossover thrash metal in this one. Not quite too punkish, but the crossover area is felt, and this is one of them that does have some two-stepping going on in the bass kicks, and it does kind of help fill the music a little more in comparison to some of the other slower tracks. But the material ends up just being too simple, too slow at times, and it really does kind of hinder the bite that the song has. And this isn't the only one that's like this. The song Aggression, and basically everything that was said about this outside of the random slow, fast verses, that one ends up just being a lot slower, which causes some sterile music, I guess you would say. Not sterile. Some boring, bland music. It's not that catchy. I actually found myself struggling a little bit with Aggression until the very end of the song when things picked up a little bit. And I actually did enjoy it a little more by then, but it was too late. I was already checked out, ready to move on. Army of Darkness, another slower, simpler track, but the deeper distortions to this one actually really helped out to make it catchier in the riffs. The solo was another good one. Plus the two-stepping drums, actually, like the bass kicks, the two-step approach really helped out. It kept it going. I mean, there's nothing that memorable about this song, but it is pretty good. I would still recommend it. It's rather catchy. Doesn't have the same problem Aggression has, or even the title track. So Army of Darkness does stick out towards the end of the song, or end of the album, excuse me. And last one really worth talking about is When the World Hungers. It's an over 7-minute instrumental. Very slow. It starts off actually with more of an emotional 80s hard rock kind of ballad-esque introduction. It lasts for a little over 4 minutes. Very haunting. It's got an extended guitar solo going on. It's pretty good, but again, the production quality leaves it to be a little more bland than it really intended to, but it's still good. It kept me going. It was rather soothing. It kept with that storm-like introduction the first song had. I don't know. I don't know what more to say about it. It's, again, just... It takes its time, and it's very depressing. That's what else I could say about it, I guess. Very depressing, dreary. If anything, it felt like it was really missing that storm sound effect from the very beginning. Now, honestly, that would have filled it up a little more had they done that, had they thrown this back to the first song on the album, and maybe made this instrumental the closing song. They didn't. They made it the second to last track, unfortunately. After that, it just becomes more of a typical instrumental. Pace picks up. Things are a little more aggressive, but unfortunately, it's just not all that great. I mean, it's another standard track for the band. I enjoy it for what it is, but don't expect the world out of it. Like I said before, the only real gripe that I have is it really could have used some falsettos. Some falsetto shrieking would have really amped up the aggression in some of the songs, and had the production kind of amped up the bass a little bit, this would have been a far richer experience, and not all the songs would have been as, like, bland as they end up, because there is some really catchy material I didn't touch on. It's just the production ends up leaving it a little... there's no bite, I guess you would say. Not really sterile, it's just, it doesn't hook you the way that it should. I mean, it loses steam after See What I See. That's sad. I mean, it's a pretty good album. I really enjoyed it. I was really surprised by it, and for a debut release, it's a fantastic offering. I'm really surprised Horror, Pain, Gore, Death picked this band up from Denmark, and I'm really happy they did. I'm glad I got to hear this, because chances are, had I not been in contact with the label for a little while, I never would have heard of this band until maybe a bigger label picked them up. And honestly, I could see not Century Media anymore. I don't know if they would pick them up anymore, but definitely Nuclear Blast would pick them up. Maybe even Hell's Headbangers pick them up, but they're not that big yet. They're just a staple underground label, but they would definitely fit right at home with them too. As far as the score goes, I gotta give this an 8. I mean, despite the production issues that do cause some sterile music, I'm just gonna use the word sterile. It's the word that always comes to mind when I'm describing this. Despite that, it's a good album. You're gonna enjoy pretty much every song. You're just gonna get into the more aggressive, faster-paced tracks a lot more than the slower, simpler ones. When there's some complexity in it, things work out better, and I really wish there was more to it. I wish there were more aggressive songs, I wish there was more falsettos, I wish there was a deeper bass presence, I wish all of this could have been included in this album, and I really hope it shows up in their next full length, because honestly, after hearing this one, I am 100% anxious to hear what the band can do as they mature and grow, and I 100% feel their follow-up album is going to completely dwarf this one. So, who knows when that'll come out, but this band, if you're a Thrash fan, especially Revivalist, early Sodom, early Slayer, even the modern Vector, if you like any of those bands, or even the sound of those style bands, this is definitely worth checking out, and well worth keeping the band on your radar.